Hey guys, this is Seth Turin, and today we're going to continue our exploration of the Coinbase commands. Specifically, I want to look at how to send crypto from Coinbase to another wallet. So as always, we're going to start out with our config Coinbase command, hit OK on that, and let's start out by looking at how much money we have in our Coinbase account. So I'm going to drag an alert over. We're going to say get Coinbase balance, and the currency will be BTC. Click OK, and let's give this a run. Alright, and I've got 0.0005 whatever, which is like a few dollars. So let's click OK. Now we're going to drag over send crypto from Coinbase. For the amount, we're going to say 0.0001, which is about a third of what I have in there. Under currency, we'll put BTC. And for address, this is the address where we want to receive the Bitcoin. Alright, now I'm using Exodus Wallet. Now exchanges like Coinbase are useful for buying crypto and for exchanging crypto, but I don't recommend storing large amounts of crypto on centralized exchanges like Coinbase. The reason is that if Coinbase ever went out of business, like FTX famously did, you could potentially lose any crypto that you have stored there. It's much better to use a hardware wallet is best, but even having a software wallet on your actual desktop or laptop is still a better idea than storing your money on Coinbase. Alright, so I have Exodus Wallet here, and I want to receive money into this wallet. So I'm going to click this receive button, and it's going to give me my address. I'm going to click the copy button over here, and I'm going to take this back into UBot Studio. We're going to paste that address here. And of course we have this advanced field here, which is transaction info. So all of the data from this transaction will be stored in this variable. Let's click OK. Now this transaction info variable is going to be stored as a local variable. What that means is that I can only actually view it from this script. But what I'd like to do is play with the data in there a little bit. So I'm going to store that in a global variable. So I'm dragging the set command over here. I'm going to call this global txinfo, and then for new value I'm going to put txinfo. The hash mark indicates that this is a variable. Now I want to point out that this isn't a best practice if you're structuring a bot, and that's why this variable is local by default. However, what I'm doing right now is just exploring these commands and seeing what I can do with them. And we'll structure it more nicely at the end of the video. And change this to global, click OK. And then I'm going to finish the script by adding another alert command at the bottom to prove to ourselves that we have indeed sent money out of our Coinbase account. Alright, let's give this a run. And as we saw before, we have 0.0005 whatever. We'll click OK. It's sending money from Coinbase. And when I run it, it throws an error. Script, why are you angry at us? I think I see the problem. Let's go ahead and say stop script so that the script stops running. And it looks like I actually forgot the decimal in the amount here. So let's edit this command. And it looks like I was actually trying to send an entire Bitcoin, which of course I don't have in the account. So when I tried to send it, it errored. So I'm going to add this decimal where it should be and click OK. And let's try it again and see if it works now. Click run. And there's our balance again. And we're sending the crypto, and as expected, this time it worked. Except that we still have the same balance, so something still didn't work right. And it turns out I actually just got a text on my phone from Coinbase saying that they were delaying the transaction for security reasons. Probably the system saw us trying to send Bitcoin out of the account using their API, so they just wanted to make sure that it's real. They also sent me this email giving me the option to go through with the transaction right now by verifying my ID, or it'll automatically go through on December 19th, which is like 3 days from now. So I'm going to click this link and go through their process just so that I can finish this demonstration. And wow, this is pretty intense. I'm going to go ahead and finish this off camera. The reason that I've included all of this in the video so far is just because I want you to see that working with a blockchain isn't always clean. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong, and it's important to work through all these possibilities. Alright, so in the spirit of transparency, I have come back and I've went through this process, and here is the screen that it gave me. We could not verify your ID, and the reason is because unspecified failure. Coinbase, you are the unspecified failure. Nevertheless, we are going to continue with the demonstration anyway, so let's move forward. Let's click OK on here. Alright, next let's take a look at what's in these variables. So I'm going to hit Control D to bring up my debugger. And we have the local variable txinfo, and then we have the global variable, which is an exact copy of txinfo. And this just gives us a little bit of information about the transaction that we just did, but it actually doesn't give us all of the information we need, so we're going to try to get the rest of the information. And to do that, we're going to need this field right here where it says ID and then gives us this hash code. So let's see how to do that. I'm going to close my debugger, and we don't want to run this command again, so we're going to create a new script so that we can play with the information. Now the first thing I want to do is grab that ID variable. So I'm going to create a set command. We're going to call this txid, and for the value, we're going to look for object entity. We'll drag this over. For the object variable, we want our global transaction info, and for the entity path, we're just going to put ID, and we'll hit enter. Let's give that a run, make sure that it worked. Control D to open the debugger. And here we have our local variable transaction ID, and it's exactly what we want. Excellent, so let's close our debugger again. And now just a quick tip. If you're working in the script window and you just start typing, then it'll automatically search for the command for you. Alright, so we're going to make a new variable. We'll call it txdata. And now we're going to say get Coinbase transaction. And for the transfer ID, we're going to put txid. Let's create an alert command to see what the result of that variable will be. And hitting enter is the same as hitting OK. We'll give this a run. And now look at all of this beautiful data that we have for this transaction. Now one important thing that you're going to need, in particular if you want to check the confirmation status on your transaction, you'll need this crypto transaction hash right here. Now the problem is that Coinbase doesn't actually post the transaction to the blockchain right away. So when you run this function, you might get all of this data back, but without this particular key right here. So real quick, I'm going to show you how to set up a function that will wait for this crypto transaction hash to appear. So let's click OK. And one more thing I want you to notice here, this object has a couple of levels. So we have all of this top level data here, and then we have this details object inside our main object. Our crypto transaction hash is inside this details object. So let me show you what that means. I'm going to edit my alert command here. And instead of showing that, we're going to show object entity, and for our object variable we'll say txdata, and our entity path. Let's watch what happens if we just put crypto transaction hash right here. We'll hit enter, and we'll give this a run, and we get back this box with nothing in it. What we need to do instead is we need to tell it to look inside that details object. And the way we do this is we say details.crypto transaction hash. And now if we hit OK, and run this again, now we get what we want. So with that in mind, let's set ourselves up a function that will wait for that crypto transaction hash to appear. So to do that, we're going to create a define command. And we're going to define a function. We'll call it wait for crypto hash. We'll click OK. And actually I want to add a parameter to this. So for parameters, I'm going to click this plus button to add one. And we're going to pass in that transaction ID. Okay, now click OK. And here we're going to use a while loop. And our condition is going to be a comparison. And we'll say, let's go up here. We're going to copy this object entity, which has the information. This is txdata, and the entity path is details.cryptotransaction_hash. And we're going to paste that into the first value here. And you see this, put it as code, but when we hit OK, it's going to turn that into what we want. All right, now for the condition, we'll say equals. For the second value, we're going to leave it blank. All right, so what this is saying is that we're going to run this loop for as long as this entity path does not exist. And let me show you how I like to do things. To me, this is confusing to look at, and I don't want things to be confusing to look at. So what I'm going to do is actually define another function right here. I'm going to click OK here. I'm going to create another define command, and we're going to give it a name that describes what it's looking at right here. So we're going to call this crypto hash doesn't exist, and we're going to make this a function. And all we're going to do is we're going to put an if command in here, and we're going to copy our comparison up here, paste it into here, click OK, and if that comparison is accurate, then we will return true. Otherwise, we'll return false. Alright, so now that confusing comparison function right here is encapsulated in this function. And we can minimize it and never look at it again. Now here, instead of having this big confusing thing, we can go to our custom functions, and we can add our crypto hash doesn't exist. And maybe that seems like unnecessary work, but it makes our script so much more readable, because now we can say loop while crypto hash doesn't exist, and we can look at a glance and know exactly what this does. Okay, so what do we want it to do? What do we want it to loop? First of all, we want it to wait. We'll say 10 seconds, and it put this in the wrong spot, so let's just put this down here. And after waiting 10 seconds, we're going to copy the set command here, and we're going to put that there. So basically every 10 seconds it's going to refresh this transaction data, and then it's going to check to make sure that this either exists or doesn't exist. If it doesn't exist, then it will keep running this loop, and if it does, then we can move forward. And as one final step, we're going to take the set command and we're going to stick it inside our custom command here. That way when we run this, it'll be complete. And I don't actually need these anymore. And let's run this and see what happens. And when we ran it, nothing happened because the crypto hash already exists, so it doesn't need to wait. So that's working like we want. And now I'm done with this tab. So why don't we give this a better name? Why don't we call it the top level function? We'll call it wait for crypto hash. If we want to add to our bot or add more functions, we might give this script a different name, but for now this is fine. And let's go back to our main script. And now to clean this up, we don't need our set command anymore. And we don't actually want to have alert commands in the bot itself. This is just for development purposes. And now we can go to our custom commands and drag over wait for crypto hash. And we need the transaction ID. So we're going to grab it from this transaction info object here. And we're going to do that with object entity. For the variable, we'll choose transaction info. For the entity path, we're going to say ID. Now I've jumped forward in time so that I can show you that the money actually got sent. We have 0.0001 Bitcoin, which at the current time is about $1.67. Alright, now the next thing that we might do is use that crypto hash to get more information from the blockchain, including perhaps waiting for the transaction to be confirmed. But we're going to have to save that for another tutorial. And that's it for today, so thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.